So on the chat, I shared a link to the PL and the draft for the execution error. Although it's not yet a formal PL, we're still working on it and would really want to have some input on the best way to go about it, any recommendation or things we need to change in order to get more progress around this. I'm trying to get Sims to join the call because he's like the initial. Okay. Hello, Sims.
Hey everyone.
Okay, so this is the Sims is the initial author of the error code standardization. So I think I should let him take off from here. Sims, can you make an introduction of who and what this proposal is all about?
Oh yeah, definitely. Hello everyone. I'm Simpson and I'm working with Chainlink Labs. We set out to standardize the JSON RPC error code because there's an inherent problem with these. That's basically unusable for most of the clients. Just like Web 2, we don't have a standardization on Web 3 error codes. Um, Especially our company working across multiple EVM chains, we've noticed that this is unreliable and we cannot use this to determine any error code suggest any particular single error. It's either cross-used within the clients or mix-used across different clients and different EVM chains. So hence the proposal. And if you look at the proposal is really straightforward. We've proposed to group and categorize errors and reserve some numbers or ranges for each category. So let's say, for instance, not quoting the exact number, but if we know any error code that's between 100 and 200, we can instantly associate that with gas errors or something like that, and then we can react to those error codes however the downstream consumers are willing to. So that's the goal. And it is pretty straightforward, like I mentioned. We're just classifying errors and allocating 200, and its subject is change based on the client feedback. But the proposal is almost done. The next stage where what I'm starting to work on is try and do negative testing, which means try and simulate these errors across multiple different chains and clients and see how or if there are any conflicts or if we can improve anything more. But from an initial investigation we did like an year and a half ago, it was pretty wild that no one was matching. Maybe the top 5 clients are fine, but rest of the clients or rest of the chains had numbers all over. So we wanted to standardize. That's a short introduction. I can send the details here or the proposal and the PR that we have. It'll be really helpful if you guys can take a look at it and leave some feedback. I guess most of folks here already know, been discussing this for a while. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so I did drop the links on the chat. So I don't know if we have anything else in regards to this, any additions? Felix?
Yeah, so I just posted some feedback on the PR. So there are some things there that I don't fully understand. So so one question for me would be like, how did you come up with this list of errors? Because some of them are really weird. I generally think it's good to to start the standardization around it, but if we start by introducing a lot of error conditions that do not exist in the clients right now, this will basically mean that in all the clients we will have to do a ton of work to get to the point where we, like we have to implement special logic to distinguish all of these error conditions. And as far as I can see in the standard, really the only key change is that the only method that has been modified is send raw transaction, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I guess also in some ways estimate gas.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So for
No.
this,
Yeah.
obviously it's good to be able to distinguish some error conditions, but we're not going to implement like 40 different arrows for this one method.
Right.
It's just
No,
unrealistic.
yeah, no, great. That's a good question. Initially, so to add a little bit more context, is the errors that you see is what we as a client of these RPC methods rely on. Pretty much most of the, let's say, assume a MetaMask or any cross-team clients would look at to react to the error message. Let's say nonce too low, gas to intrinsic gas too low, so we can bump up the gas, we can increase the gas or increase the nonce and things like these, which are apparent and which is most useful to the cross-team clients rather than between clients or between execution clients or consensus clients. That's the focus at the moment here. But of course, like you mentioned, we can always tweak. This is not a finalized proposal. It is a proof of concept showing how this will be implemented, but the error itself or the ranges can be changed and it's not set in stone. Just looking for feedback here. And if you think, for example, and again, like you mentioned, yes, for now, I've shown it only for ETH send transaction or send raw transaction. Inherently also the estimate gas. Just focusing on mostly when you send transaction, you get an error, so you can react to it from the DApp's perspective or an app's perspective. That's what I've been focusing on. But of course, again, happy to extend this or reduce it, whichever makes sense. And some of these
Okay,
errors
thank you,
could have been
Sims.
like really from long back. Again, I can go back and fix some of them because I think the original classification I was like from 1.5 years ago. I haven't done the new checks again. I can fix that. I can go back and check it. But any type of context you guys leave will be really helpful for me to cross check across. Sorry, Mercy, I cut you off.
Okay. Yes, no problem. Sebastian, you had a question.
Yeah. So given that the basically the RPC layer is a multi-million-dollar industry with many, again, multi-million-dollar individual companies behind it, have we kind of included them proactively in the process, gotten their feedback? Because if I think about it, the number one reason why devs today are not using Ethereum but are using Alchemy, let's face it, is because exactly these edge cases are handled much better, right? And I don't need to have client specific forks in my kind of backend or front end code. So I think there's a lot for us to learn here, and I'm just curious if any of them have been involved this far, or if that's the process, if that's the plan.
Yeah, again, great
So,
question, Sebastian. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mercy.
sorry for cutting you in. I wanted to chime in a little bit on this. So I did reach out to some RPC providers, but there's kind of like a reluctancy in joining the discussion and moving this forward. So I'm not pretty sure how we're going to go about it in that end.
I mean, we can just resolve it right here. I mean, literally, this is the way it has always worked with.
Felix, we lost you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I dropped out. Just quickly wanted to say, the way it's always worked with this API is that we basically need to set the standards from the client's point of view, and then the providers will follow the standards that have been proposed by the clients or have been set by the clients, because for many of the APIs, the providers will pass through the responses from the client as is, or they will cache them in a generic way and so on. So it's actually, for the RPC providers, it's pretty rare that they would have their own custom responder for any of these things. So they will mostly just, like, if we fix it in the clients, they will just go along with that.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. We've noticed only probably two major clients like Tenderly and Alchemy have the wrappers on top. Most of the other providers we checked with just pass through the RPC responses they get. And we also have good working relationship with these RPC providers, but we need a base or a solid foundation to even, tell them, hey, you gotta stick with the standards. For that, we need some sort of documentation or a proposal to be merged officially in the OpenRPC or Ethereum Foundation to guide them on what to implement, so they can also stick to the standards. If that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be good to start, but the proposal itself, I see the main thing is that it has a lot of errors, and some of them very questionable ones. So we have to see kind of where we can narrow it down. As far as I understand, the main things that are required for the transaction submission is the question of like, was it is there like the transaction pool errors? This is like the important category basically here that you have, where it's about it's about either that or then you have these gas related ones. So they look quite good because they basically mirror the actual conditions that can occur when you're submitting a transaction. Some of these other ones, they are a bit more sketch. So
Sorry, could you give me like a one simple example of which one would be, just to get an idea?
yeah, so so for example, I think the more I look at it, you made this document there. It's this execution errors.yaml file containing this group of, and it has codes for example, nonce too low, nonce too high, execution reverted, invalid opcode, and then this out of counters thing. So out of these, I would say the only thing we really need is this execution reverted, because everything else is just like, I mean, how we don't distinguish now. Like invalid opcode it doesn't even exist in EVM. Like invalid opcodes are not really a thing. So, and this like out of
Okay, I
counters, I
understand the
don't know where
confusion.
that's coming from, or like probably was
Okay.
maybe generated by AI, or like I don't really
No,
know.
no, no, no. I can explain that. Okay, now I understand the confusion. Um, you don't have to implement all the errors here, but let's say if you have to implement one of these errors, such as invalid opcode, you would use -31603 or execution reverter -31602. The invalid opcode, especially the out of counters, is a ZK stack specific issue where they maintain a counter on producing ZK proofs, and when that runs out, they send out an error called out of counters errors, which is a common across all the ZK sync stack, not ZK sync, ZK stacked chains that we worked with, and it's specific to them, and doesn't mean every client have to implement all these errors. It is, if you want to, let's say Besu has a specific error related to only to Besu, they can always come and add that error, which will be reserved for them in the future, and they can just use it, or any other based clients can use that, not necessarily have to use it. So that's how it is. It's not that all the errors need to be used by every single client.
Yeah, so what I got from last week's meeting is that the scope of this is way bigger than just Ethereum clients. It's all EVM-like thingies.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even the chains, I checked ZK Sync chain, some of the ZK Stack chains, different providers like Alchemy, Tenderly, just to get a lay of the land. And it's not specific to just top 5 clients that we have, EVM clients.
Yeah, well, I mean, the main issue with adding all of these errors is that, yeah, I mean, the errors will be standardized quotes, right? But it's not really, it's kind of meaningless then, because what really needs to be standardized is like for which specific condition requires your client to return this error. Like it doesn't, it's not so much about like, I mean, yeah, it's good maybe to have the error codes. So that's a good step, but it's also kind of important for us to know like when should they actually happen. And I guess that is something where I would say it's maybe better to start like a bit more minimal and try to define the like top 5 errors that we really need. I mean, I think it's an awesome step to start with transaction submission, because honestly, it has the most errors. The other methods, they are mostly these like, read methods for basic blockchain information, and you basically have the option of like the client failed or the item is not there, in which case we don't return an error, return null, or we have the, we get the item. So it's not there aren't too many other things that can really happen, but the things that where we need it the most is the transaction submission, and then in some ways these like index queries like get logs, where it would be good to come up with some errors for the edge cases, I guess. But these are not even included here. So I guess, yeah, for the transaction submission, mostly I think we can go with your proposal. I have another question, by the way. So you made the all of the codes you kind of assigned into the negative integer range. Could you maybe explain why you did that? Or
Yeah. Someone commented on the PR2. It's not, oh, maybe it's just you.
yeah, it's me.
It's we can choose any numbers. Again, like I mentioned, it was just to show how we can implement it, not necessarily. And the reason why I chose that is it's an immediate range next to the JSON RPC standard. I think the JSON RPC standard ends at minus 32,000. So I chose the next immediate range. We can, of course, choose the positive integers too. No constraints there.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a common misunderstanding. So the JSON RPC standard doesn't actually tell you that all errors need to be negative. It just puts its own errors into the negative range because then they're going to be out of the way of the application. But I mean, we are the application here, so we can just choose it by ourselves. And we have some existing error codes. As far as I understand, we have 2 or 3 defined error codes even now in the spec. They are a bit random, I would say. Like we have, for example, in Geth, we've been advocating for a long time for this error code 3, which is which is used in specific place in ETH call. So ETH call is another one of these that could really benefit from some standardization, I guess, because there are a lot of conditions that can happen in ETH call. And then we also have the error code 4444 for the history expiry, which I guess we kind of chose it because it matches the EAP, and it's a very sort of, we felt it's a good signal because we had to choose a code. But I guess for the that means that like currently we have between basically number 0 and number 5,000, we probably shouldn't choose. So
yeah.
But I guess that's fine, fair. Actually. Like we do, any number is fine. And then most recently we actually had some requests where we were thinking that maybe we can just continue from 3, so like use code 4, or so I don't really know. Like we just have to in the end just like choose something.
True. Yeah, we can change the numbers if everyone feel comfortable using positive numbers. Definitely we can go with the positive numbers. I just chose only because it's next to the range of standard JSON RPC, so people will be familiar. But again, 0 other concerns for changing it to positive numbers. Of course, we can change it. I can do the change, and next meeting we can have it a little bit more nuanced. So from what I'm getting, I can reduce the number of error codes that we have to focus on probably top errors. Maybe even remove some that's not maybe relevant to the clients. Just keep it to the minimum ones. At least the ones I can go back into our code base and see what are the ones we are validating against. I would assume most of the clients would also need to use them. So we can keep it to that to start with, and then we can propose adding more if that works. That's really helpful. Any other questions?
No, I mean it seems good to me. I was curious a bit. So in your PR also you added this you are now adding this extension for the error group. I guess this is kind of a temporary workaround until the OpenRPC allows us to support the errors.
Oh no, okay. A little bit more context there. We worked with OpenRPC Foundation to bring out the extension specifications. I'm not sure if we have Zane here. Okay, Zane is not here. So that's why it took us long, because we were working with OpenRPC Foundation for like over a year to implement the new specification called extension specification. So this is an official error groups adopted by OpenRPC Foundation. So by what does the current proposal that doesn't do that Zane responded is, I'm extending the extension to reserve error ranges so we can natively validate if the error codes that returned by a group or a method is within the range that I'm expecting. That's the only difference. Right now, we don't have a way to do that natively in OpenRPC, but I'll be working with Zane to see if we can avoid extending the extensions to add these native conditions like a range condition. But OpenRPC natively supports that. Is what actually made this solution possible, because otherwise the OpenRPC or the Ethereum spec would be like massive and would have to copy paste all these errors across each method, which means ETH underscore send transaction will have, let's say, hundreds of error codes copied under, and also ETH call will have all these 100 errors again copied. So now we can create a group and reference the group from any method we want to. So that's a feature supported by OpenRPC now.
Okay. And then I'm also curious. So in the actual error group files, you have the codes, of course, but then you also have the message, which is in your case not really like, I mean, the messages are more like identifiers, and then the data
Correct.
says it's like the, I guess it's the error message.
So yeah, great question again. Initially, we intended the data. So even now it is possible. As per the specification, now you can use the data as any data type you want. For example, if you want to return a stack of error message with multiple different fields, you can use the data field. Uh, Again, it's backwards compatible, but we are not enforcing it currently. We don't want to break any features, but we've added future-proofed it for all the clients that if we want to send more error stack to the users, they can use this data field. That will be supported by the specification in the future. But right now, all we are focusing on is just the code, and then maybe move on to using the error message, and the error message could be like a standardized string if you want to. If not, it's okay. But yeah, we don't want to break any compatibility at the moment, and we want to be completely backwards compatible. So we are not insisting on using the data field, but the data field is an object that can be reused as a string or an object.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just curious, like, what's the meaning in this? Like, because in the meaning in the files, you're defining the code, the message, and the data here, but I don't know what if this means that if I, for example, implemented this error in the client, then I have to return the error message as it is given in the specification, or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we had a conversation about this, but if we enforced a message, it would mean that a lot of clients will need to change a lot of a lot of implementation, and it's a huge lift. So we are still currently debating if you want to make sure that we enforce the implementation of message. So before it was data, right? So data field or data string used to be in message. Now I moved that to data because we wanted to see if we can standardize the error string also. Let's say gas too low. Any client can use gas too low as well. So if any other client or DApp is trying to reference that, they can sort of check that string too as an option. But right now we don't have say in it or a decision made on that particular topic. Just I wrote it this way so it is indicative to rest of the clients who are going to implement, saying, okay, gas too low, it's straightforward, let's do 31,800. But if I say, for example, transaction price must be greater than base fee for it could mean a different thing for a different client. So I don't want to make it too verbose. So just, in short, You don't have to implement the message at the moment, and you don't have to use the data field to return the data. But it's the direction I feel like we should go in the future to make it more expansible or expandable, so we can send any data or data stack as part of the header in the data field. But right now, just focusing on code. Cool. Any
So,
other
okay,
questions? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mercy.
no, I just wanted to ask if there's any other questions or contribution on this. Kira, can you please go on?
I'm wanting to change the topic a little bit. So if there's any more questions about error codes or wanting to talk about error codes, I can wait.
Yeah, I have one more. I have one final comment about it. So before we continue with something else, so the I posted a link there now in the Zoom chat for some Hive tests. So this is actually the current situation with the error code 3, and maybe it's something we could actually change. So I'm pretty happy to see that. So for this specific error, this error is the error code 3 is the one that should be returned when in ETH call the execution has reverted, and it should give in the data field the raw data returned by the EVM from the contract. And this was like this error code 3 thing was for me like this kind of little experiment to see if we can kind of make it like start the standardization here, because the at the time when this was added, we like the clients were returning results all over the place. Like some clients wouldn't return the error data, or other clients would return the error data, but it was already parsed from the ABI and so on. And I'm now happy to see that at least with Bisu and Nethermind, they are actually returning the raw error data as intended, but they are not returning error code 3 in the situation, but they are returning a generic server error. So it would be good if in Bisu and in Nethermind, we could return the code 3 in this specific instance. I think it's not that much of a change, honestly. And it would probably like help us resolve that thing at least.
I
Just what
can
I'm
code 3 on what? On execution reverted?
Yeah, so that was basically this proposal has been kind of open for a long time. I actually don't know if we have it even merged in the spec, but I think let me see if we ever did. So it looks like we have not merged it to the spec, so there should be some kind of open PR maybe. Yeah, so it's this PR here, PR number 600. I will also post. Yeah. Carrie posted the link also. So yeah, that was the proposal for the spec, and we did add it into the test suite. So kind of long while ago, and I was just thinking, like, I mean, this could be one of these cases where we just kind of resolve some of this issue like right away on this call, because I think we have representation here from Bisu and Nethermind. And so we could just, decide now how this is going to be handled. And then, yeah, we can make some progress.
Sure. I'm being coy, but it seems reasonable.
I see. We had recently a PR doing some changes there. I see. Okay, there's a description about this code 3. I'm also linking it, but we didn't change it there yet. Okay. So
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. Like if we couldn't, because like I said, I added this to the spec, like I added this to the test kind of sneaky way, because when I added the test, the error data was not correct. And somehow in between then and now, the error data seems to have been corrected. Just the code is not correct still. So if we now also change the code, you guys going to be passing one more test and we'll finally have like 2 clients or 3 clients returning the same.
This probably corrected the error, so some parts of that, right? But not the error code. Okay.
Yeah, and then I think in the next step for ETH call, we could actually figure out some more code, like the revert, like for ETH call, the execution reverted is basically the most important condition, because people kind of want to know when the contract failed. They kind of want to get the solidity error message and so on. It's just so that is kind of the big thing. But then there are some other things. For example, if the gas is out of range for the client, like if the node doesn't allow the gas because it's over the like configured cap and things like that, there are no defined error messages for that. It's kind of hard to test these things, but I guess at least we could define the code. But this is something where we can create another issue. And then this is also going to have some overlap then with the other proposal that we discussed before, because we should probably use the same codes that we use for the transaction submission also in ETH call. Basically, the ETH call is going to have a subset of them.
Yeah, I can probably try and use the same error codes that you guys are returning, but at least I want to make sure that, let's say, if execution errors happen, it falls in a range of 1 to 100, and gas errors in like 200 to 300, something like that. But we can try and reuse some of the previous errors.
I mean, there aren't really any. That's the thing. Like there are no errors right now. I mean, the clients all return errors, but it's just they all return these like generic error codes from JSON RPC. And this is in part what has led to the current situation of, for example, certain apps parsing the messages because it's just there was just no other way for the apps to really distinguish these very important conditions. I mean, you know this because you, as you said, you worked on that kind of library as well. So it is obviously very important for us to agree, but the clients at the moment don't return any kind of coherent error code. And the only error code we tried to establish for this was this code 3, like I said, because and then the other error code we tried to establish is the 4444 when the history is unavailable. So I guess we still, I mean, I'll get back to you with some more codes that we could possibly add, but
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be super awesome. Thanks, Felix.
Yeah, so the point here is to have ETH call and send transactions having the same error codes, right? So the point here we're making to have the ETH call and all other call-like things to have the same error codes as send transaction.
Yeah, I mean, send transaction is just going to have more errors. That's the thing. For ETH call, there aren't really that. I mean, the main thing is that for ETH call, one of the things you can do is because you can target ETH call to a specific block in the history, which obviously you can't do for the transaction submission. Then it's kind of that there's going to be some of these like history or state related errors as well. We're not really touching these in this initial proposal, but at some point there will have to be a list for these like errors related to the state, where there's going to be something like the client is missing the state to execute this call, or the client is missing the history to execute this call, things like that. And we don't really, there's none of that exists right now. I don't even think we have really standardized it within the, like, I don't know what kind of error we return right now for that kind of stuff. But yeah, that would be like the stretch goal. So in general, I still think it's good to start with transaction submission because it has the most errors. Just
yeah, I'm fine with that.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback.
Okay, I guess that's all for the error codes. Kira, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I'm just curious, like what is the best way to like make changes in this? Is it that we like put the RPC methods through the EAT process and go that route? Is it that we merge changes into the execution APIs and clients start failing on Hive? like what's easiest for client devs? One thing I've been thinking about is like versioning for execution APIs, and so like we can announce when we're going to make changes. But I'm curious from like a client dev perspective, what's the best way to like make changes or get input even?
I mean, I can give a quick comment on this. We discussed also before. Turning the changes into EIPs has been tried, and there are some EAPs in fact for that are still open in the interface category for these changes. The problem is just that the interface category is very overloaded with some stuff that nobody really understands, or it's like because it's coming from like a different universe. Like for example, they are trying to standardize the wallet internal RPCs there, or they're trying to standardize like for another chain, or all these things. This is not. There's a lot of noise there, and for just specifying like changes to the execution API as it is implemented by the Ethereum nodes, it will just kind of be lost in this, because if we now start to merge just the EIPs which are related to the nodes, then everyone's going to be asking like, what about the other EIPs? Or like, it's kind of hard to draw the line. Once we like, I think for now the consensus has just been that everyone kind of gave up on the interface category. I know people are doing some stuff there, but like for the clients, it's never really mattered, because once they start looking there, it's going to be kind of wild. Like which of these proposals are, should be implemented, which ones should not be implemented. It's kind of impossible to decide it, yeah.
I think the silence here is very telling. This is kind of the big question that this subdomain of Ethereum has struggled with in the past. So I'm glad we're at least thinking about it.
Like I can give an example. Like for example, there are EAPs such as EIP 695. Like this is a very old EIP, and this EIP, for example, this added the like chain ID method. So this one, if you submitted this today, like this would be probably considered one of the like acceptable ones, right? So I mean, yeah, this as an Ethereum client, you can very easily implement this method, and in fact, it is implemented in all the clients. It's part of the spec now. Like this is one of these examples where someone took the effort, they put in the EIP long time ago. It was agreed that this is a good direction. It was put in the spec and so on. But this sits next in the same list. You have things such as, I don't know, like an EIP that's saying, the window EVM providers object or something like that. This is not an EIP. Like this would be EIP 57449. So this one doesn't really concern the Ethereum clients at all. So now it's just kind of the question, because with RPC, it's always so open-ended, who implements what, or like where does this even apply? Like obviously the first EIP, right, 695, we could have brought that up on ACD, but like the second one, maybe it was brought up on ACD at one point, like when it was discussed. I have no idea how this, when this was merged or when this was turned final, or who should even implement that. And there are some other ones that kind of got left by the wayside that are in a similar direction, but they didn't really make it. So it's not like with the EAPs, it has some downsides. If we start using EAPs for this, then we first have to kind of clear up the backlog of the existing EAPs that are kind of, people are still proposing EAPs there, and there are some in last call. I guess one of them has been in last call since 2021. There are two of them which are in last call, one since March, the other one since, or like until March, and then the other one until, like ETH config was kind of speed ran all of this process, I guess, because it was deemed important. So it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I think there needs to be some sort of process, you know, rather than just like YOLO merging.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it would be good, and that's why I was also like, for me, the ideal case would have been that if we somehow managed to ever get to, like, this is also one of the reasons why we didn't expand the tests so much initially, because I kind of was hoping that at one point we will finally get to the exciting moment where several clients are passing 100% of the tests, and then once we have that stable base, we can like very carefully extend it and like see what else we can pull in under the standardization effort, and just kind of do it a bit in lockstep. But it was just very hard to like get to this initial passing state, and I feel we're closer to it than ever now. With the RPC compat test, we have very few failing tests for some of the clients. So I mean, if we can put a little bit of extra work in to, for example, resolve the final differences, like for the total difficulty with Nethermind and so on, and then maybe for some of these like error codes for the unimportant cases, then I think we can be very close. And if we ever get to the situation where, you know, it's the default to have the green tests, it's gonna be quite easy to say, you know what, guys, we added 5 more tests. Can you please check them? Can we try to like get this bit standardized, that bit standardized? It's just that we never really got to this sort of initial moment, so we're still kind of trying to play catch up on the existing issues that are years old.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, I can keep bugging clients. And sometimes it's on the execution APIs too that need to be updated, but cool.
So I don't know if there's another thing on this end. Okay, and the floor is open for an open discussion. If you have any other thing pending, we want to discuss on this.
Yeah, Barnabas, I can quickly give an update on that. So we have been, yeah, this is maybe, I don't know if this is like depressing or exciting, but like on the Geth side, we have been working this year on a proposal for like some kind of minimal REST API. This is coming as an kind of reaction to the frustrations that we felt, especially last year with the JSON RPC. So for the REST stuff, we were just thinking that we'll basically have a brand new proposal. Oh, wow, it cut the downvote. So we've been thinking that it might be easier to get started on like a very small proposal that basically has a minimal and fully trustless API for like the core functionality offered by the nodes. And if we could have this, then it would maybe somehow be possible to implement the JSON RPC interface on top. And also, since it would be a new API, we could avoid some of the problems of the existing API, notably this kind of scope creep and the overlap between the wallets and providers and different chains and so on, and basically start something new. The downside with the REST is that since the JSON RPC is kind of sort of an industry standard in the Web3 space, it's gonna be a bit hard to convince anyone to use it. So yeah, I mean, we don't really, we're still working on this. We have the proposal, and we've just started working on a demo implementation of it, so we can at least have something to show. And I guess it will be presented, if you guys are coming to DevConnect, we will try to present more about it at the ETH Client Summit at DevConnect. So that's where we were hoping to kind of introduce this and you know, start off a bit of a discussion between the nodes on the like available features and so on.
So Zen, I don't know if you have any other thing to say. Zen is from the Open RPC team.
Actually, sorry, I'm joining really late, so I actually don't know what
Okay.
said. I lost
Jane,
track
I
of
can add
time.
one
Oh,
thing. for a little bit of context, quickly. Um, Felix was asking about the extension specification. So if you want to give like a couple of lines about extension specifications that you
Yeah,
help cook up. Yeah.
yeah, sure. That's easy enough. So OpenRPC has an extension specification, which basically allows you to define extensions to the spec for things that are not officially a part of the spec, but may be on the roadmap to be a full member. So those are things that like sort of provide an upgrade path for upgrading OpenRPC in a sustainable way, as well as allowing for customizations that may be application specific. Um, Other high level things I can say about the extension spec is that you can include an extension in the spec itself. And so other people will be able to read and consume this and validate against it. So, for instance, with like sort of error codes or error groups, you'll be able to like pull that down as a person that's just like say writing a spec against something else, and then be able to define like, oh cool, error groups, I can put x dash error groups and these locations, and then everything else will sort of fall out from there depending on what the consuming system like renders or doesn't render. um, Other things about the extension spec. Extension spec sort of changes or improvements. So initially, we kept the extension spec to be tied to the actual sort of specification objects. So like method object, or it could be like errors or things like that. But we started to use JSON pointers instead, so you could be even more specific. Okay, Mercy, go ahead.
No, so this is actually out of context. I wanted to ask you about the any updates on the documentation front. You did mention about some improvements in that regards.
Yeah, so OpenRPC team has been rethinking the way that we do documentation. So the way that it was a long time ago, it was like Soda was state of the art with Gatsby like 4 or 5 years ago. But now we kind of want to move back into this Docusaurus direction, but even more generic than that. So our thinking is that we're going to create sort of a generic base that produces the OpenRPC in Markdown, and then consuming projects can then, depending on how they want to redisplay that, display that in Markdown. So for us, it's going to be almost slightly two-tiered. So one is generating a sort of Markdown generator, which is going to be almost no changes from your perspective. The only difference is that now the OpenRPC won't be an opaque contribution to the repo, but it will be generated code. And then the consuming Docusaurus plugin will then have nice sidebars, curlability, and you'll be able to drill into individual methods. And you'll also be able to do sort of the sorting by type, which has to do with document tags. So one of the problems that we kind of identified with the execution APIs is that you don't exactly know where a method comes from what fork. So being able to tag this and then the drill down, like what's coming up in Glamsterdam or what's coming up in foobar fork is really useful. So we're going to try and bring some of that versioning nuance into the docs. So we're just looking for a great baller experience. And if people have like other sort of UX leaning improvements and things like that, just let us know. You can drop us a line either directly in our Discord, or you can just at me in the JSON RPC API context. But that's just like a little bit of where we're going. And then the sort of longer tail of that is thinking about errors and negative testing within the spec, which is kind of where Sims is talking about. But we're thinking about doing something a little bit smaller to just like get us started. So just taking the standard errors that we have right now and then making that negative test work through the light clients' like coverage tool, etc. And we also have some additional coverage tools that aren't currently being utilized by EF, but could be utilized and would be like probably super beneficial. Okay, so I kind of rambled. I got in there. Let me know if anyone has any questions. Yeah, and happy to talk about it.
So okay, thank you, Zane. Thank you everyone. I think this should be the last point of discussion, or do we have one last thing to talk about, or we should call it for the day? And also, I just wanted to say, I don't know if Kira is still here, about some PRs on the repo itself. We need to, if lifelines can be made available, to look at some of the PRs, and also especially the ones that has to do with typos in the docs itself needs to be merged.
I can look at those if you want to send them to me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining today's call. And I'll also urge us to join us next week. Our calls happen bi-weekly. So this would be a great point of contact for us to have discussions like this and actually get things moving, because we're kind of like on a more slow pace. So if you have these discussions and we get clarity on the things we need to do and act on, it will help us move faster and then achieve more tangible results. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Thanks. Right.
Bye-bye.